All right, we are back with the Philly Frenzy podcast, and we have a special guest, Roy, with us, Mr. Baseball Analytics himself. Um, so, Roy, what's going on, bud?
Hey man, just enjoying the start of the season, putting in some work for a couple of teams that really going, not even going heavy. All of them range in how heavy they go into data and analytics and stuff. But um, we're working with a company that I'm working with four clients this year, or actually now three clients this year. So it's been a nice little kickoff to see like the range that we've been able to get done. I can't say who they are, but they're all in the top 15 in ERA, which is means I'm doing my job okay. So yeah, definitely excited for what we've got so far.
um, Rob, you want to lead off?
Well, I mean, clearly, Chris doing his job over there. All his teams are in the top of the league in ERA. So, getting into analytics, a guy we were talking about heavy in our baseball segment is Otami. What do you think about that guy? His ability to hit and pitch at such a high level.
Yeah, no, Otani. So that's he's going to be a guy that once he hits the free agent market, he is going to get paid. He might like Trout. Trout is on a different level when it comes to just like wins above replacement. But Otani, just his ability to do things, not just do things, but also do it at a high level. I think he's phenomenal. I mean, the guy, bringing some numbers into it, the guy has he has leads the MLB currently with starters with 100-mile-per-hour fastballs. So he hit in the same game had a 101.1 mile per hour fastball, and then he had a ball leave the stadium at 106 miles an hour, I believe. And like to be profile in the top 99.9% of arms that can be 101 plus, but also the only guy in baseball who can do that from the mound and the plate is ridiculous. He also had the third fastest home to first time last year, which he plays the field decently well if he had to. I know he doesn't, but just like combat wear and tear, he doesn't. But if you had to play this guy in left field, for example, like he wouldn't be a liability, and he'd probably throw anybody out trying to tag up. So he's just one of the best athletes end to end I've ever seen on a baseball field.
I agree. What the dude's doing hasn't been done since the earliest days of baseball, where guys were, throwing complete games and throwing a bat in, when there was hardly anybody on a roster. But the dude's just, it's something to watch, man. It's really fun. It's bringing another spark to baseball that they definitely need.
I think the thing is like, and this is differs on people's opinions. It's like the DH, right? And I'm kind of surprised, like the Padres or someone, or like a National League team, didn't put more money into him, just because like you basically give that up as a level of like offensive production right now. And essentially you tell your guy, and I've seen the philosophy in the clubhouse. You tell your guy, hey, we're going to give up this 9-hole spot. Don't worry about hitting. Don't go out there and hurt anything, And so if you got a bases loaded 2-out situation, your pitcher's up, you're anything that, is not getting them hurt is a plus. And so I'm surprised that like a Padres or a big market NL team or a Dodgers, I know they put in a bid, but I'm surprised they didn't put in a bid just to blow everybody out of the water because of his ability to do that. I guess it was unproven, but still. Would have been nice to see him in the National League.
I would have liked to see him in Philly. I don't. I want to. I'm gonna make sure that if you can't answer this question, just don't answer it. Jacob DeGrom, seeing the beginning of this year, is DeGrom the best pitcher right now?
Yeah, no, so I can't answer this question, so that takes one of the teams off the list. But no, he is the best pitcher right now. Jacob DeGrom has the ability to, first of all, throw 100 miles an hour, which I know I speak about a lot, but velocity, unfortunately, in the fact of the matter is it's king right now. There's a reason the MLB is considering moving the mound back a full foot, and that is that you wouldn't see reaction times from like you would think from like 1990. You would see reaction times if they moved the mound a full foot back from 2010, which is just a testament for like the average velocity in MLB has gone from 90.5 in 2006, the early 2000s, to 93.5. And DeGrom is just a classic member of that like exponential increase we've seen over the years. He was a shortstop at Stetson University, couldn't really hit, always threw the ball hard across the infield. Gets a pitch, becomes a pitcher on the mound. He's 90, 92, and then over the years just puts on a couple of pounds. He's still one of the skinniest guys in the MLB, but puts on a couple of pounds and just refines his mechanics to be able to consistently sit low 100s with a disgusting slider and disgusting command. I mean, at the end of the day, from an analytics profile, like it's not just things you can do, but things you can do well. And it's very rare to see a guy who can do all of them. Someone with plus horizontal break, plus a vertical break, plus gyro spin on pitches that really set the mold for like what a good pitch looks like. Like guys that on my teams that I try and like basically mimic. I'm trying to mimic that 94 mile per hour Jacob DeGrom like cut slider. I'm trying to mimic that 88 mile per hour like wipeout slider, and obviously 101 doesn't help, doesn't hurt either. So in terms of I had to pick one guy to win me one game on any given day, I'm picking Jacob DeGrom. If he could just get some run support, it's going to be real funny when he's 6-16 with a 1.58 ERA contending for the Cy Young.
This Dodgers team, it's early in the season. They're 10-2. Is this one of the best teams you've personally ever got to see?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like cash is king, and analytics wise, we play Moneyball so much of the time. I work with a staff that the entire pitching staff is paid $11 million, and the Dodgers have gone out and paid their 3-starter an average of 29 to 31 million a year. And for them, first of all, I commend their ownership over there. I commend GM over there. I'm commending everything they've put together. But for them, they've gotten out and gotten the pieces that they wanted because they have blown everyone out of the ballpark in terms of what they've got available to them in terms of resources. And you know what? If I was the Dodgers, I would be doing the exact same thing. They're on paper, they're one of the best teams I'll in my lifetime or our lifetimes we'll be able to see. Just from the standpoint of like, there are a ton of hidden gems in baseball, but at the end of the day, players that get big money like your Trevor Bauers and your Mookies and everybody else that they're paying on payroll is they profile really highly. Otherwise, they wouldn't get that money. For every coach that's saying let's go get Bauer, there's an analytics guy saying let's also get Bauer. And Bauer himself is one of the I've had the privilege of actually getting to know him a little bit and work with him a little bit. In terms of when I worked at a different company, I didn't personally work with him, but I just got to see him in the facility on an everyday basis and see the effort and the time he puts into becoming a better pitcher. And he's an analytics guy himself. I mean, if he wasn't pitching, he'd be a mechanical engineer out of UCLA. That's what his degree was in. So, I mean, at the end of the day, he's a smart guy who knows how to get outs, not just from your traditional pitching standpoint, but from an engineering standpoint as well. This guy is everything you want in a pitcher. I know sometimes he does some stuff that people are like, God damn it, you can't be doing that. But in terms of the Dodgers, did they overpay for him? If you got the money, you can overpay for him. It doesn't matter, That's what people always seem to fail to realize is they're like, oh, he's not worth 31. I'm like, well, then he's worth 21. And to them, it would the extra $10 million gives them peace of mind. And when you can do that, you're the Los Angeles Dodgers. So it's the best team I've seen on paper since, I don't know, probably since the 110 win Yankees.
Do you think they'll hit 110 games? I asked Rob this earlier.
Do I think they'll hit 110 games? Honestly, I think they'll get 105. I think the over/under is 105.5. Just because their pitching is first of all, they've got a great lineup, but when you're a 3-starter, is everybody else's 1-starter? It makes it so hard, especially in what we're considering as the pitching dominant side of an MLB. MLB ebbs and flows obviously every year. There's a dead ball in the live ball era, but You're seeing guys with, sub threes consistently across the board now, and the Dodgers have done a phenomenal job of just packing their bullpen and rotation in with power arms and complementary arms. A lot of guys don't know that. In data, what we do is we don't just want guys that can throw the ball 100 miles an hour. We want guys that complement each other like very, very well. And so when we're looking at strategies for how to get guys out, a lot of it lies actually in neurobiology. We try and train hitters to kind of like react to a certain stimulus. So what we'll do is we take the Dodgers. They'll bring Bauer in. Bauer has almost 2,700 RPMs on his fastball. He can throw it up to 99 miles an hour. He'll sit 94 to 99 most games. He throws his fastball 40% of the time. So we'll start getting hitters used to that pitch profile. So they're going to see fastball, changeup, curveball, slider from Bauer, and then we're going to bring in a guy. And now it depends on the psychology of the hitter. But now we're going to bring in a guy like out of the bullpen that does none of those things, who doesn't throw a fast. So you just spent 6 innings, right, getting used to a fastball, cutter. He's going to throw a slider. He's going to throw a changeup. He's going to throw a curveball. He's going to throw. So you just spent 6 innings hardwiring yourself to react to Trevor Bauer. And then if the next 2 innings, if we bring in a guy that doesn't do any of those things, you now have to switch back. And so it's like an on-the-fly type thing where us as data guys, we want to like if everyone does things the same way, if all of our staff throws 100 miles an hour with 2,500 RPMs and 12 inches of vertical break on our curveballs, it doesn't really create any disassociation for a hitter. It's kind of like if you can hit one, you can hit them all. But if we can create that, like what we call like the standard deviation. So if we can get a guy that's, let's take a lefty at a 3/4 arm slot with a across the zone slider and a great two seamer, he doesn't profile like Bauer at all. And now you have to face two different pitchers, and you can't just be. You have to make like a concerted effort to be like, I'm not facing Trevor Bauer anymore. Let me change my approach. Let me change my mechanics, and it just changes the game. Not a lot of good hitters can't. There's an old saying: good hitters adjust at bat to at bat. Great hitters adjust pitch to pitch. And so, like good hitters, you might get them once or twice, but to do that consistently over the span of a whole game is going to be really, really tough because you're going to have to react to literally two guys that pitch in two very different ways with two pitches that move, or I should say, in this Bauer's got 6, and this reliever we brought in has 2. So you have 8 pitches that do very, very, very different things. And what that tells us as data guys is you have to be looking for that pitch in order to hit it, which means you already start the at bat with a distinct disadvantage. Is that you only have a 1 in 8 chance of guessing the right pitch. Now you have to guess it in the right zone, execute, and hopefully do some damage when you do guess right. But when your chance of guessing right is only 12 to 15% in this case, then you have to execute 12 to 15% of the time, which obviously in baseball, if you hit 300, you go to the Hall of Fame. So we take a 240 hitter and we take 12 to 15%. He only actually executes 5% of the time. And now I do that over the whole game, and only 5% of the bats end up, 5% of at-bats end up in a base hit or an extra base hit. You're doing your job as a pitching staff there.
Makes sense. All right, so there's one guy I want to know if you have seen any analytics on him, or if you've done any research yourself. This Yermin Mercedes, kid from the White Sox, is he legit?
I actually haven't seen any analytics on him. Like I said, I can answer this question too. I'm actually gonna pull them up right now because I've got an extended database. Let's see. I give you guys a live look at what I do and how I go through the process in it. So let's see. Yermin Mercedes, 28 years old, so late bloomer. Last 15 games, he's hitting 476. All right, last 7 games, 333. So he's coming down off that hot streak a little bit. Let's see. Let's look at the home run breakdown and pitch breakdown. All right. So Yerman Mercedes. So this is what I see when I look at Yerman Mercedes. He's gotten hot at the right time. He's kind of an unknown name coming into this year. And what that kind of does for analytics guys, but pitchers specifically, once we relay the information down the pipeline, is it's almost, if you remember that one season that Jose Batista had,
Okay.
that anything that was up and in pitch, if you threw him an up and in fastball, it was ending up over the left field porch. There was just no way about it. I look at Yerman Mercedes here. I see he's got exit velocity at 98.4 miles an hour when it's a down and in pitch. I see that he's got 4 base hits in the last 15 days when it's a down and in pitch. I see he's got 3 home runs when it's either a down and in or in pitch. But he has none over the outer part of the plate. So what that tells me as an analytics guy is we're just going to go soft and away to him. And so the thing with Yerman Mercedes and the thing with guys that erupt on the scene is they're unknown guys, and so we don't know how to pitch them. So they haven't really actually given us it's the old adage in science, a critical sample size, a significant sample size. They really haven't given us a way to get them out yet because we didn't really have them in our pipelines or databases or whatever information we collected on them. It didn't exist. So now I'm looking at Yerman, right? And if I'm telling my pitchers on my teams to try and get this guy out, I'm saying we're going soft and away until he proves us otherwise. And if we look over the last 15 games, everything's been in. And I'm guessing over the next 15 games, you're going to see a lot of curveball sliders away until he gives them a reason to stop throwing it. So that's my take on Yerman Mercedes, my live take on Yerman Mercedes right there.
I appreciate that.
That's kind of what I said earlier. Is I want to see him do it long term because he's so new, and I want to know: are you really a great player, or are you like a Jeremy Lin from basketball he came on the scene, nobody knew how to guard him, he blew people's minds, and then he came back down to earth, and he's a rotational player at best. But I'm excited to see if this kid can be a star or not.
Got any questions, Rob?
When you are doing analytics in baseball for these teams, is there a specific area of the analytics that they all seem to care about the most? Is there a certain stat that you find that they're finding is the most important?
Yeah, it sometimes individualizes for different teams. So, for example, owners, GMs, not only in baseball, I'd say, because you have to first prove without a semblance of a doubt that a certain statistic relates to wins. I mean, at the end of the day, these guys are trying to win baseball games, and so if you're able to prove teams with a higher average fastball velocity win more games, if you're able to prove that the guys with the higher OBP plus are able to win more games, if you're able to prove all that kind of stuff, then you're going to be able to, convince their GM or owner or whoever the case may be. A lot of them, you got to remember, a lot of these owners have made a lot of money in their lives, but they're not young guys. They're 60, 70 years old. Data is a very unfamiliar territory for them. So, no. I guess the holistic answer is no, but the real answer is sometimes. If you remember, Al Davis with the Raiders, he fell in love with anyone that could run a 4.40 or below. So sometimes that happens, but I'm very lucky to be able to work with people that just kind of just trust in the process, and they realize that it's not really a one size fits all model. It's more we want to make sure we strong up our lineup or our pitching staff or whatever the case may be. With 100 miles an hour is awesome, and having a great average velocity in our staff is awesome, but if we're not winning games, then it doesn't really matter. And I think the classic case right now is the Yankees, where they've got a ton of bullpen arms that aren't really working the way they thought they would work at the start of the year. And I think that's the thing, is sometimes we address players as individuals rather than a team, and that's an analytics failure, but it's also a it's also like gives them the best chance to succeed. So when we have Chad Green, who pitches like Chapman, who pitches like, yeah, I don't know who else had that pen now, but they've got all these guys in the pen that kind of profile the same way. And so if you're looking for one pitch in one spot or two pitches in two spots or stuff like that, if you're just looking for a power arm and you don't have to worry about the sweeping slider guy like a Sergio Romo type, if you're just worried about Aroldis Chapman, it becomes easier to hit guys like Aroldis Chapman, right? And so that's the kind of the problem sometimes when guys fall in love with like one analytic, like velocity. As velocity is awesome. You should definitely load your bullpen and your starting rotation with guys that throw the ball as hard as physically possible. But you also need guys that it's not really from a velocity standpoint, but create different pitch profiles. So not everything you see is a 99 mile per hour, 2,500 RPM, 17 or 19 vertical break, 11 horizontal break fastball. And I'm just using those numbers because that's just an average fastball in the MLB. In terms of like spin profile, in terms of velocity, obviously that's a plus pitch, but hitters are human beings and they're complex. They're going to adjust eventually. So you have to keep them on their toes at all times. I mean, these are some of the best elite athletes in the world.
Makes sense to me.
All right, I brought him up earlier in the show when we were covering what's been going on in baseball. Do you know anything about Mickey Moniak?
Like I said, not off the top of my head. I like these questions. Usually I do. Mickey Moniak. I remember hearing the name. I don't know if he's a. Let's see. Mickey Moniak. Oh yeah, he's Phillies draft pick from a while ago, right?
Yes.
He's the first overall pick in 2015, 2016?
I believe so.
Yeah. Mickey Moniak. Nothing. I really don't know much about him. The only thing I know about Mickey Moniak, and this is actually pretty funny, is he actually graduated high school the same year, or no, 1 year before I did, and I remember playing against him in perfect game. I think taking with the first pick in the draft, was which the Phillies did. He wasn't really like a power hitting guy. Like he was like a very good defensive like fielder. He definitely deserved to get drafted. Like he was the Baseball America Player of the Year, if I remember correctly. I was going to UCLA, but like he never really did anything that would tell you that he was going to be like a future like stud in terms of like an analytics perspective. Like he hit the ball well for a high schooler, and he tore the cover off the ball for a high schooler, and he ran really well for a high schooler. But sometimes teams forget that performance is only indicative of the region these guys play in. So to be the first overall pick in the 2016 draft, I think, to be completely honest, the Phillies did it because his signing bonus I'm looking here is like not as much as like a stereotypical number one draft pick is. He's a guy that stereotypically goes like 17th to 30th in the first round. I mean I hope he's like tearing the cover off the ball and stuff like that, but I mean I'm looking at some of his minor league statistics and it's 236, 284, 341. Still flies around the bases, 6 triples, stuff like that. I mean, that's stereotypically not a guy with life-changing ability at the top of the lineup, So I hope he develops, and I hope the Phillies are able to kind of reel him in. But for now, like he's a fast guy, and which would be awesome if like he could steal bases. But nobody steals bases anymore because it's like actually a fallacy to be stealing bases in today's game. So you don't really take that leaves you with the outfield, and you don't really take defensive guys first overall. So yeah, he's a great player. He's a good dude. I don't know if he deserved to be a first round pick, but I mean a first overall pick definitely deserved to be a first round pick. I hope it ends up working out for him. I see 214 thus far. I mean, like I said, we're early in the season, so we're not big enough. We don't have a big enough sample size for him to be able to say, even from an analytics perspective, for a hitting guy. I mean, obviously I'm a pitching guy, but from a hitting guy to be able to say, hey, like this is what we can do to fix it. So I think he'll figure it out though. I mean, he's young, so that's what he's got going for him.
Okay. Staying with the Phillies, unless Rob's got a question here. You're a pitching guy.
You're good. Continue.
And one thing in Philadelphia, that's kind of been being brought up this offseason going into the beginning of this year is Aaron Nola a true ace? It seems like the last couple years when we needed him, especially last year in September, he kind of like fell off the face of the earth. Is that something, analytically speaking, that is something that you see on a graph from him consistently?
So Nola, and I'm gonna pull up once again. I'm gonna pull up a database here. He doesn't throw super hard, but what he does do is I think, well, based on what off the top of my head, just remember seeing something. He shows the ability to spin the ball. Aaron Nola has always been defined by his curveball, and so sometimes it just takes a little bit of a breakthrough. And for guys, I mean, he's 26, 27 years old. It takes a little bit of a breakthrough for guys to be able to kind of like learn how to pitch, just based on their stuff. So, I mean, I'm looking at his split stats on a database now, and he's thrown 123 fastballs. So that's the thing is Aaron Nola throws his fastball 45.9% of the time, when his curveball is his best pitch. For just an example, Trevor Bauer throws his fastball 40% of the time because he knows his fastball is not his best pitch. And that could come from, a pitching coach's standpoint. That could come from a bullpen coach's standpoint. It could come from a general manager or a manager's standpoint. But if Aaron Nola wants to have success, he has to realize that he doesn't throw 103 miles an hour like a lot of these guys do, and he's got to be able to harness what works for him. And in this case, it's his curveball. So the fact that he only throws it 23.1% of his time when it's his best pitch, you should probably see that around 35% of the time. Because not only does that change, I mean, first of all, the success level directly, because the expected value, we call it EV, the expected value of the outcome is going to substantially decrease because his curveball is so good. But what that's also going to do is be able to have him increase the perceived velocity on his fastball. I mean, a guy that's 93, 96 miles an hour, increasing the perceived velocity on his fastball by 1 or 2 miles an hour by having the hitter respect a curveball more than he is right now. I mean, 45.9% of the time, you're basically saying, and I'm rounding up here, and I hate to round up, but so 46% of the time, you round up. Let's just round it up to a clean 50, right? If I'm a hitter at the plate and I guess fastball on Aaron Nola, I'm gonna get one. I'm gonna get at least two if I work a 4-pitch at bat.
Okay.
And that's the thing that some of these guys don't do well is they've been taught their whole lives, use your fastball to get ahead in the count. But the problem is, if you throw that pitch over the plate and it's an average pitch, you're going to get hit. There is no getting ahead of the count. They're going to swing. This isn't like, high school or college or even the minor leagues where guys can dominate using their fastball. You have to be able to throw any given pitch at any given time for any given outcome. And for him, it's not his fastball. And I remember the big change in Trevor Bauer when Trevor Bauer was able to make the switch from like really good pitcher to ace was throwing his fastball less. And honestly, I think Aaron Nola is going to have to be able to do the same thing. He's got a cutter and a sinker, and if he can, kind of increase the efficiency on both those pitches as well as throw his curveball a little bit more on the count, maybe decrease that four-seam fastball usage to high 30s, I think he's a good pitcher. He shows the stuff to be able to be a good pitcher. In terms of, is he a bona fide ace? The answer, not now. The answer will be in the future if he, is able to hone in on his stuff. So, I mean, that's my take on how he can do it.
What year did you start doing analytics?
Wow, 2015, I believe. 2015, I started really getting into analytics, just from a personal standpoint. I was around it, like as I came on the podcast last time, like with the Moneyball and all that kind of stuff. I got I got to watch it and like see, like I just be around it for a little longer than I've been involved in it. But I really, really started to go down the rabbit hole 2015-ish. I graduated high school in 2017, and then in college, I was kind of just I mean, my freshman year, I was working at a fashion internship. Funny fact, and then after that, I just kind of honed in on it, following my own Tommy John surgery, and then it just became my bread and butter. After that, you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life, is what they say. So I have the fortunate ability to be able to do that. So I think a lot of being good at something is being able to just like get obsessed with it. I'm definitely obsessed with I wouldn't necessarily call it baseball analytics, but just using numbers in order to better outcomes. I mean, I think that's the coolest thing in the world. So
Analytically speaking, who's the first player that like comes to your mind when you start talking analytics? Like who
first guy that
like
comes to my mind.
who jumps like right off the analytic board?
Yeah, analytically, I think Trevor Bauer has to be the first guy because he's the first. He was just open, like people thought he was crazy way back in the day. They're like, he's doing all this kind of stuff. He's, like, is it good? Is it bad? Is it ugly? Like, blah blah blah. Like, and he was the first guy to be able to say, hey, I want to use this, like, to be able to make myself better. I'm gonna buy in, and this is the thing. Like, I'm gonna go on a like small little right here, I guess, but analytics isn't some magic wand. And I think that's a lot of people, they get scared, especially old coaches. And that's the same thing with me. Human beings overall are scared when change approaches. And analytically, we're, entering a new cultural paradigm where objective data is more important than like someone's opinion. And I don't think necessarily that's a bad thing. There's room for coaches in this game to be able to do what they do best, which is coach. Analysts analyze, coaches coach. I mean, if you got a guy in the World Series and you flown down to the bullpen and your closer's throwing up, you don't throw him. I don't know that as an analytics guy. You know your guys better than I do, but I know what they do better than you do. And there's where the trade-off comes. It's a give and it's a take. And if you can master both, you can have a really good ball club. I think at the end of the day, like, and not to get too deep, but it's like, and no matter what you do in life, you want to be able to say you approached it with the best ability possible, with the most accurate information, so that if it doesn't work out, you can go to bed at night knowing that you gave like every single thing and it just didn't work out. Like, that's okay. And that's what analytics does, is it's an objective piece of information. You can't lie. You can't run from it. You can't say, "Oh, I was really good," when you weren't. Like, it's an objective piece of information without, all humans have inherent biases. It doesn't have inherent biases. It doesn't have, it's not going to lie to you. It's not going to tell you, "Oh, like, I should have made it, but this happened," or "I should have done this and that happened." Like, we all know a guy that could have gone pro if he didn't hurt his knee, right? Analytics doesn't Analytics gives you the opportunity to get out of bed every single day, look at the data, and say, I can be a better version of myself. Objective data gives you the ability, this new cultural paradigm and moxie that guys have in the clubhouse, in the front office, in the in the C-suite. It gives you the ability to wake up every single day and say, I'm going to be a better pitcher, and here's the direct roadmap as to how. And if you have a good coach and a good analyst, man, like, the sky is the limit for these guys. And I think a lot more teams are a lot more welcoming of it, and that's why a lot more guys throw harder. That's why team ERAs have gone down. That's why the MLB is like, we have to move the mound back. It's because baseball has started to finally appreciate that you can let people be the like people who do things the best should do that thing the best they can. I Last time I was on here, I said the wolf that's not on top of the hill is always hungrier than the guy on there, and that's so true. And that's the thing, is everybody's chasing that one guy. Everyone's trying to knock the king off of the hill, and analytics gives them a roadmap how to do it. And there's no lying. There's no hey, this could happen, that could happen. No, like, you either do it or you don't, right? There's a old quote I love called it's a Yoda quote, and it says, "Do or do not, there is no try." And analytics gives you the ability to say, if I follow these steps and execute. Execution is the most important part of the plan, obviously, but if I follow these steps and I execute, I'm the next guy on top of that hill. And I think a guy like Trevor Bauer, who went from a first round pick to being shopped by the D-backs for nothing, because they thought he was crazy for following this new objective sense of information. He's now the highest paid pitcher in baseball. In the back end of his contract, he's going to make $40+ million because analytics kind of showed him the roadmap how to be a better pitcher. And he put his ego on the shelf, he committed to a plan, and he lived with the consequences. And I think at the end of the day, that's all you can really do.
Okay.
So I guess my wrap-up question that I have for you: analytically, do pitchers, seeing your starters, relievers, everybody that comes in the game, or hitters analytically win or lose you more games?
Analytically, it's pitchers. And why it is at the top half of your rotation, guys have an ace to be able to go out there and dominate. If Jacob DeGrom is throwing for the Mets, obviously the Mets lose 1-0, but still, if Jacob DeGrom is throwing for the Mets, as a hitter, you have to go out and maybe bleed out a run. So your 1 through 3 guys, especially on teams like the Dodgers, with deep rotations, your 1 through 3 guys are absolutely dominating. And so when you go out there, they're going to give you a chance to win, and so they're going to pick up more wins than the hitters do. Also, more than anything, pitching is an independent event. It's not a reactive event. Hitting is a reactive event. If Carlos Rodon is on that day, he's throwing a no-hitter. You know what I mean? But pitching is an independent event. The game revolves around you. You control the tempo, the flow. If you execute the pitch that you're actually trying to execute, the batter is most likely not able to hit it. And so at the end of the day, pitchers, just by the sheer job description, if they do their job 70% of the time, they're the worst pitchers in baseball. So that's pitchers will always win you more games than hitters. At the lower end, like your bullpen guys, like your hitters will win you more games. But for starting pitchers versus hitters, it's starting pitchers every time.
Who's the best hitter in baseball?
Best hitter in baseball is not even close. It's Mike Trout. Like the guy, like he got that $400 million deal, and it still might not be enough because the value that he brings to a team is the greatest. And like analytically, and this is strictly analytically, Mike Trout is already done more for baseball than Babe Ruth had, and it's just because he produces such quality at bats every single time, that he has the highest WAR in baseball, and it's not even close. I don't even know who's the second. And yeah, he like in my opinion, he's already the greatest hitter of all time. I really hope they can surround him with some bats that can actually do some damage, some pitchers that can keep him in some ball games. But when you talk about a 5-tool player, like it really doesn't get better than that.
Trying to think if I have any more questions. Do you have anything you would like to talk about?
No, nothing. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Yeah, no. I the one thing I was going to talk about was I incorporated it into our question. So yeah, it's just at the end of the day, like, look, analytics isn't this big scary thing. It's like I get it. Like coaches, I hope there's a major league coach or 3 or 10 or 15 listening to this podcast. If it's not today, I know they're going to go back in the future and look it up once this is, when this and Joe Rogan are competing for 1 and 2. But at the end of the day, like, analytics is not scary. It is not going to replace your job, what you do ever. You guys have coaches. You have an extraordinary job and a phenomenal emotional quotient to be able to handle what your players do on an everyday basis. We've seen tragedy in baseball. We have seen our Jose Fernandez deaths, our Oscar Tavares deaths, our Nick Aidenhart deaths. Like, there is no analytic for that. There is no analytic for being able to know how a guy feels on a given basis. There is no analytic for if a guy is having trouble at home. There's no analytic for if a guy has the yips. There is no analytic for if a guy, is missing his wife and kids because they live in Arizona and he, plays in Toronto. You guys are going to be in baseball for the indefinite future, but the guys that can emotionally be available for their players and consider analytics, those are the guys that'll be in baseball forever. So yeah, hopefully, I'd like to consider myself a guy with a high enough EQ and IQ to be able to play both fields and talk to both guys, but that's always the thing I've gotten, is the number one question I've always gotten, and you guys have probably heard it, is when people go, oh, like, are analytics going to replace coaches? Or, like, whatever, are analytics going to replace blank? And my answer is always no, because the human element is more important than anything else. All analytics does is give us an edge. The human element will always be there as long as there's humans playing the game. So that's the one thing I want to contribute.
As long as there's humans playing the game. Can you see robots playing in the future?
No, I can't, but I can see them umping in the future. Some of these umps, man. I'm looking at some of the data we've got on some of these umps, and I'm like, Jesus, like Christ, like I don't know. I think it violates something if I like. Everyone knows what ump I'm talking about, but like, come on, man. Like some of these calls that I'm seeing nowadays are getting ridiculous.
At home plate against Atlanta, Philadelphia, safe, out.
Yeah, yeah. Like, come on, man. Like, you have instant replay. You were still able to figure that out, or now I directly can't address this, but there was a play the other day that a guy got hit on the elbow and leaned into the strike zone and cost the team a win, and that can't be reviewed. Like, it's just crazy. I mean, you want humans playing the game. You don't want the human element of mistakes factoring into the game so largely that it causes a win or loss. And so, I mean, I would hope that maybe I'm okay with everything else. It's just the strike zone, because if you get a guy like Yadier Molina behind the plate, or Yasmani Grandal or Austin Hedges or Kyle Higashioka, those guys steal a lot of strikes, and these umpires make a lot of mistakes because they're really good at pitch framing. So it becomes really tough to control for that variable, and then you have to go find guys that can pitch frame and all that kind of stuff. I'm interested in your take on it. What is it? Do you guys like seeing like a human call balls and strikes, or would you rather go to a robo?
For balls and strikes, I'm pro robot.
I definitely agree with both of you. I do believe pro robot is the way to go for balls and strikes. When it comes to an umpire,
It would also speed the game up, which is something that they're desperately trying to do to get people's attention.
I agree with that. But I think if it comes down to a play in the field or a play at home plate, I think it needs to be a human.
And I think so too, just from an accountability standpoint. I mean, we have instant replay, we have all that kind of stuff. I think it needs to be a human as well. It just it can't be obviously reviewing plays in real time, but that kind of stuff. But just diffusing certain situations and being able to have the element of Ken Griffey Jr. rounds third base, here he comes, and being able to call him safe, like all those types of things, I think are important. So yeah, I'm pro robo for the strike zone. I think everything else, there needs to be a human aspect of it. I think there'll continue to be a human aspect of it. Yeah, I think like I said, umpires, your jobs are safe too. You're gonna have to wear an earpiece, and honestly, you're not gonna get grilled in the press when you miss like 19 calls a game.
Makes your job a little bit easier.
Yeah, I'm sure Armando Galarraga and guys like that are on my side as well. So, it makes the job easier, and it just takes sometimes you hear about umpires like the moments about them and stuff like that. It just takes away that advantage too. Like, why even discuss it if we don't have to? You know what I mean? We have a technology.
Exactly. Well, I don't have any more questions. Rob, you don't have anything else to say? Or ask, I should say?
No, the pitchers versus batters was my last question I had.
Oh, yeah, you did say that. I'm sorry. Roy, I appreciate you reaching out and wanting to come on again. I enjoyed this conversation. I like that I'm able to ask some questions, get different inputs instead of, ESPN says this person's batting 3 for 5 and he's thrown, or a pitcher's thrown, 70 innings and his ERA is a 4. You're breaking it down for me in a different way that when I go to watch the game, it makes it a little bit more interesting. When they show Bryce Harper's hit 21 home runs off of 100 mile, or was it 98 mile an hour fastball, whatever it is. And he leads the MLB since he came in. The first person that pops in my mind, I'm like, oh, let me make sure next time I talk to Roy, I bring this up because I want to see what his input is on this. Like, you're changing the way I'm watching the game, which is making it a little bit more interesting, even though I still sometimes don't get through the third inning.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's I'm glad I could do that for you guys. I think it's fun to think about the fact that you got it's like you're playing chess out there, the player's got to go make the pieces, but somebody else, make the plays, but like somebody else is moving around the pieces and stuff like that. So, it's what makes the game fun. I think that's what baseball does that no other sport can is it gives you the ability to really dive into independent outcomes because like no one's chasing you, trying to tackle you. There's no one trying to block your shot. Like at its purest form, baseball is a guy 60 feet 6 inches away, and maybe next year 61 feet and 6 inches away, trying to get guys out. And I think that's is just obviously like there's how can you not be romantic about baseball? But in its purest form, like that's what it is, and that lets us manipulate and play with it and see what exactly is going on and really get after some of the things we've been getting after. I'm just grateful to have my place in it the way I have right now, and hopefully we can keep going. Yeah, for anybody that's interested in knowing more, like I also do this on like a consumer basis as well. I break down profiles and stuff for people when I'm not working on when I'm not working full time on major league contracts, and then my business is Liquid Biomechanics, like similarly like Liquid Pro Am and all that kind of stuff. It's all under the same level, all under the same label, I should say. LiquidBiomechanics.com. We do a ton of fun stuff. If you want to reach out, you'll hear from me directly. Yeah, we do a ton of stuff with analytics and catchers and pitchers and hitters and all that kind of stuff. We blow through money like it's water over here. So on tech. So it's always a good time, and always a good time. You guys having me on, I appreciate it. Always have a lot of fun when I'm on the podcast.
Appreciate you wanting to come on and breaking down some stuff
Absolutely.
for us.
Giving the people a completely different perspective, probably blowing a lot of minds out there with how the analytics really work. So we appreciate you coming on. We'll have you back on anytime.
Yeah, guys, appreciate it. Yeah, I'll definitely once we get deeper in the season, I'll definitely once we've got data on all these things, and I can hopefully answer the questions a little deeper, more than is this guy a fluke? And obviously we don't know yet. So I'll definitely reach out around mid-season, maybe close to the All-Star break, and we'll sit down and talk shop again.
Sounds good.
Absolutely, sounds great.
Roy, again,
appreciate it, guys.
Appreciate you coming on. All right, guys, that was Roy, our analytics guy. He is fantastic. I can't really say our analytics guy, but analytics guy that we're friends with. Brings a lot of different things into my mind when he starts talking analytics.
It just adds another layer to the game. I've always been a big proponent of the eye test, and that I was was under the belief that analytics was like it had a use, but not to overdo it, but some of the stuff he brings up is just a different level of and a different way of thinking about how the game works.
Yeah. We aren't scheduled to be back until Monday. We got a quarterback breakdown. Our 5 guys that are going to be in the NFL draft, ranking them from 5 to 1, who the best quarterbacks we think will be NFL career-wise. But until Monday, as of right now, we are open for anybody that wants to reach out and come on and, talk about anything you want. Just reach out to me on Twitter. It's mhathaway23. You could also reach out to Rob himself at Rob Danka. We will relay a message to each other. We will work out a day, a time. But until Monday, probably around 2 o'clock, Philly Frenzy out.